Must win. It's a word a lot of people, two words that a lot of people hate to use. They take it very literal when you call something a must win. Week 3, typically when you say must win, a lot of people roll their eyes. There's the curmudgeons. It can be a must win because you can lose and you can still be in the playoffs. I get it. But this Sunday, Texans versus Chicago Bears is a must win. If the Texans want to have any chance at even convincing themselves that they're going to be competitive, you have to beat the Chicago Bears. And quite frankly, if they do it, they'll do Lovie Smith a big favor, because the tie that a lot of people, rolled their eyes at, a lot of people made fun of, it could actually come into play pretty significantly, at least early in the season. And when you're the Texans and you have this small of a margin for error, and you got to take advantage of opportunities like the one you were given in Denver and the one you were given in Indianapolis, you're going to have to beat teams that you're supposed to beat, or you feel you should beat, although Chicago is favored. But let me just lay out why this is a must win. We talked about this on Sports Radio 610. It's going to be on sportsradio610.com tomorrow. And if you have any comments, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. Like this video, all that jazz. It would be much appreciated. I think we're 250 deep about a weekend, which is great. But I want to get more, and I'm going to continue to pump out content daily. The Texans could actually beat the Chicago Bears and then forfeit the Chargers game. Now, obviously, they're not going to forfeit it, but my point is they could just beat the Chicago Bears. In 4 weeks through the season, the Texans could be in very, very good shape in the division, despite just beating one team, a dog-butted Bears team. Let's just lay out the future of the AFC South, and let's go to week 3, and let's go to week 4, starting with week 3. And you can play along if you want. We will subscribe. Shout out to KB up there with the 100 emojis. It's 100 emoji and 3 claps. So shout out to you. But let's just go to week 3 right now. The Tennessee Titans, the old Oilers, as I call them. Right now, they're 0-2. They look terrible. They don't look good. Looks like Ryan Tannehill's kind of hit that wall after reviving his career there. Derrick Henry, eventually running backs wear down, and they lost Harold Landry at the start of the season. Now Taylor Lewan got carted off yesterday. So the old Oilers aren't looking too good. This week, they host the Las Vegas Raiders in Tennessee. Las Vegas is a 2.5-point favorite. I think Las Vegas is going to be a good team. They got some pop off that edge. Shout out to Max Crosby, Colleyville Middle School, and had the best history teacher of all time, in my opinion. Shout out to my mom. But the Las Vegas Raiders, they're a 2.5-point favorite in Tennessee. Is it far-fetched to say that Tennessee loses to Las Vegas? I don't think so. As a matter of fact, I think most people would pick Las Vegas. So let's just pretend that happens. Kansas City, they're a 6.5-point favorite right now in Indianapolis. I'm betting that goes up to 7 or 7.5. I'm willing to bet that the money early on is on Kansas City. Indianapolis just got shut out in Jacksonville. They didn't have their starting receivers. Might get them back, and we saw them tie the Texans. So let's go ahead and give that win to the Chiefs and that L to the Indianapolis Colts. Jacksonville. I like Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville is going to be better than a lot of people expect. I think Doug Peterson's going to do a good job. James Robinson seems to have revived his career, and they have a lot of young talent there with untapped potential, and they have a coach that isn't grinding on co-eds when it's time to prepare for games. But they're going to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers. Let's pretend the Chargers win that game. I don't think that's too much pretending. I think that's going to be a popular Survivor pool pick. So let's go ahead and hand the Chargers a loss, and let's pretend that the Texans beat the Bears, which, again, in Chicago, what they're saying right now, all right, thank God the Texans are coming to town. Texans here are saying, well, this is a winnable game against the Bears. So it works both ways. But let's just pretend that the Texans, who are actually the most likely to win if you go by point spreads, let's pretend the Texans beat the Bears. Here's what the standings would look like after week 3. Texans would be 1-1-1. Jacksonville would be 1-2. Indy would be 0-2-1, and Tennessee, the old Oilers, would be 0-3. Okay. So the Texans would be alone atop the AFC South standings. Let's go to week 4. Week 4, Texans versus the Chargers. Let's just hand them a loss. Let's be realistic. This isn't last year. You're not going to catch them slipping. Derwin James is playing. That defense is great. They've added some pieces, and they're probably not going to be sleeping because that loss last year cost the Chargers the playoffs. So let's give the Chargers the win. That drops the Texans to 1-2-1. Tennessee and Indianapolis play each other. Either way you look at it, if you hand Indianapolis the win, then they'll be 1-2-1. They'll have the identical record with the Texans. And if you go with Tennessee and give them the win, then that would put them at 1-3 and Indianapolis at 0-3-1. And then Jacksonville's taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, who I hate to say this because I don't like Philadelphia sports. I was just kind of raised not to. The Philadelphia Eagles, let's give them the win against Jacksonville. It's probably going to be another touchdown favorite, I would think, especially with the way that Philadelphia is playing. By the way, Lopez had some pretty good numbers on Jalen Hurts and Davis Mills, their first 11 games in. I actually have those, so I'll just present those numbers to you right now because I find it fascinating. So I'm kind of regressing here, but I just think it's pretty interesting. In their first 11 starts, Hurts and Mills, Hurts completed 57% of his passes, Mills 67%. Hurts had 15 touchdowns, as did Davis Mills. Hurts had 7 INTs. Mills had 9. And the QB rating for Hurts was 85.1. Mills was 90.3. Hurts threw for 2,635 yards. Mills threw for 2,562. So point is they were very similar. I'm just saying all that to give you some perspective on how far Philadelphia has come. Now, Hurts was serviceable in his first full year as a starter. He was much better last year where Philadelphia was able to go 9-8, and he at least showed him enough to believe in him. Davis Mills at this point has been god-awful 2 games in. But we go back to the week 4 thing as I digress there. So you're going to have Houston at 1-2-1. You're going to have Indy at 1-2-1 or 0-3-1. You're going to have Tennessee at 0-4 or 1-3, and you're going to have Jacksonville at 1-3. So worst case scenario, if you beat the Bears, if all this stuff holds up, and it's not like some long shots. Like I'm not throwing too much crazy stuff out there. At worst case, you would be tied with Indianapolis atop the AFC South. Or if the Colts lose, you would be in first place by yourself, and you would be facing the Jacksonville Jaguars in week 5. It's just something to look at. And that's why the must-win thing, if you're one of these people who just is focused on the draft, that's fine. Sit on the sidelines. You don't have to worry about it. But I don't think this Texans team is as bad as we thought it was going to be. And I would like to see them compete because there seems to be like this mindset among a lot of people where it's, well, you got to have that top pick in order to get the best quarterback. If you don't have the top pick, you're not going to get the best quarterback. Justin Herbert was the 3rd quarterback taken. Josh Allen was the 3rd quarterback taken. Patrick Mahomes was selected 11th overall. Deshaun Watson ended up going 10th, or right there outside of the top 10 is when those guys went. Mahomes and Watson right after top 10. Like this notion that you just have to get the top guy, I don't think that's true. You compete, you try to play to win, and if the Texans beat the Bears, first place doesn't seem that far off. IMM says, yep, this is Mills' last chance to win fans back. I don't disagree with you on that. If you lose to Justin Fields and the Bears, I don't know how many people are going to be able to get down with that. And Davis has been bad on the road. 9 of his 10 interceptions on the road. JT says, live in Austin, grew up in Houston. Thanks for always localizing it for me. Listen to 610 on my phone most days. You and Seth are by far my favorites to listen to. Thank you very much. That's a diverse taste because Seth and myself, very different guys, but I think Seth is one of the smartest people that I've ever met. And when it comes to talking ball, he's good. And when he starts doing his other stuff, I think it's funny as well. Let's talk about the state of the wide receiver position, because this was one of the things that we talked about at the start of the season as something that the Texans really needed to do, and that was become less Cooks dependent. The Texans last year, if you look at the stats for the Texans last year were as spread out as any other team in the NFL when it comes to your top wide receiver and the amount of receptions he has, and your second leading wide receiver and the amount of receptions he has. Now, we're not counting tight ends. We're not counting running backs, just wide receivers. Brandon Cooks had 90 catches last year, and the second most was 33, and it was Nico Collins. You've heard me say this stat a lot. I think it's fascinating. And it's even more relevant when you don't really have a running back that's like a real threat out of the backfield. You have Rex Burkhead, who they'll dump it to, and we really haven't seen from Pierce, but that's relevant. And the main goal of the offseason, whether it was within with guys playing better, whether it was, getting the tight ends more involved, the main goal in the offseason should have been, and eventually it will be, they're going to get some wide receivers. But the main goal, not necessarily like something Caserio could have done, because I don't think the marquee pick on the wide receiver, although they did draft Mechie, but Mechie even had a torn ACL. So it's not like they drafted Mechie thinking that Mechie was going to be ready to go. There was a strong chance that Mechie would have been, on the injured list to start the season. But that was the main goal. Let's just look at how they've done in handling that 2 games in, trying to become, as I called it, less Cooks dependent. So through 2 games, Brandon Cooks has 22 targets. All other wide receivers combined have 19. And it's only 2 wide receivers that have gotten targets. It's Chris Moore and it's Nico Collins. Cooks has 11 catches. The other wide receivers have 11 catches. Cooks has 136 yards. The other wide receivers have 129, and that's combined. And there's only 3 wide receivers that have gotten targets. So really, they haven't done a very good job of becoming less Cooks dependent. The question is why? Why is that? Is it because they don't have the talent? I think that's likely the primary reason. There's just not a lot of wide receiver talent. I like Nico Collins. I don't think Nico Collins is a solid number 2 guy. I think he's a guy that you like to have on your squad. But if we're just like listing, and some people would say Brandon Cooks is probably an ideal number 2 as well, but he's the number 1 on this team. So why is it? Is it a personnel thing? Is it a Davis Mills is too focused in on Cooks? Is it an offensive coordinator thing? I think it's a talent thing. But I also wonder if Nico Collins is even the second best receiver on the team. And I'll get to that in just a second. DPaul 713, Mills has to be less Cooks dependent. I agree, sir. There are at least a few times on Sunday where other guys were open and Mills chose to throw to Cooks, who was either less open or not really open at all. Yeah, it seems that Mills is kind of keying on that first read. And, if Cooks is going to be dropping touchdowns like he did, that's going to be a problem. I also wonder, how do you get these tight ends involved? Like, 1 catch for O.J. Howard, I thought for sure that they would get Juice Man a little bit more involved. Pharaoh Brown, just when he catches the ball, he just looks like such a beast when he catches it, but it's few and far between. And then Brevin Jordan, he's nicked up, he's banged up, and I know Mills kind of missed him a few times, so they haven't gotten that really going. The one thing that I would love to have would be a running back out of the backfield that can catch the rock, like at a high level, not like the Rex Burkhead, hey, let's run it out, and you could throw that to any running back, but like James White in New England, where Caserio was, like something like that, like someone that you can throw the ball to. Danny Woodhead, like it always seemed like New England had these little running backs, and a lot of times they were young and they came out of nowhere, and they would make impacts on games. Like it's actually kind of weird. Like if you look at the New England model, and I don't want Nick Caserio to, copy the Patriots, and we often like mock the Patriot way, and Nick Caserio trying to do things that way. I think he's kind of squashed that myth. But the one thing I do wish that Nick Caserio would have brought with him that was kind of a New England concept that I think would really, really work here. And I think it would help you in the long term. And I think it would help you in the short term is like churning these running backs, like use these young running backs to the best of their abilities. When Rex Burkhead was producing there, it was after he was in Cincinnati. They brought him there and he was a little bit younger. James White was a guy that no one really knew about. And he was he could have won a Super Bowl MVP. James White was catching the ball out of the backfield. Danny Woodhead was catching the ball out of the backfield. Ben Jarvis Green Ellis, he wasn't old. You had him, you were using him, and you were doing things with him. They drafted Sony Michel in the first round. Sony Michel, I know it didn't end up working out there, but there were times where Sony Michel made a lot of plays for them. They just drafted Damian Harris a couple of years ago, the pick after the water polo tight end, Kahali Waring. They got Stevenson out there now. Like, they churn running backs, and for whatever reason, Caserio gets here, and it's like, okay, well, let's go bring in Mark Ingram. Let's bring in Phillip Lindsay. Let's kick the tires on Marlon Mack, and let's keep Rex Burkhead around and make him our number one running back. And we'll draft Dameon Pierce so far into our lap in the fourth round, and then we're going to have another guy on the roster, Dario, who's just going to be a special teams guy. Like, you can churn running backs. Like, running backs, I would select a running back every draft. I'm not even opposed to drafting them in the first round. Like, if a running back can give you 3 elite years, and that's what they're going to do before they hold out, that's the most impactful guy on your team. Those guys, running backs, are like immediately ready to contribute. And especially in the second round. The second round's a gold mine for running backs. That's where you find them. And I would be doing it every year. Every year I'm getting a running back. Every year I'm getting a running back, because more times than not, they're ready to go. Teams don't value them, and they can fall into your lap. Like, if the Texans would have drafted James Cook this year and they would have put him and this isn't hindsight. I've been saying this 100 times. There's an article of me writing going back to the Bill O'Brien era where I wanted them to draft a running back when they took Blacklock. And you see what those running backs are doing now? Cam Akers, Jonathan Taylor, A.J. Dillon, Gibson, like all these running backs in the second round, third round, they're making impacts, and you have Rex Burkhead here. When your backup running back is not a threat to really be a receiver, he doesn't even warrant getting a carry when the game plan's right and the share load is right, like it was on Sunday. What are you doing? Yeah, I mean, that's how you mask. Like, that's an easy fix for this wide receiver discussion we're having. That's an easy ass fix. It's not difficult. Like, it's hard to find good wide receivers. It's hard. A lot of times you got to use premium picks. You can luck into it, but it's hard. Okay? I can forgive if in one offseason you can't figure that out. They could have improved this running back position on the damn waiver wire. And that would help the problem at wide receiver. But when you're not going to get your wide receiver and then you decide, okay, at running back, I'm going to have one guy in Dameon Pierce who's not really a workhorse, and I'm going to have him do everything in week 2, and the other guys do nothing, then you can't even mask your flaws. Like, you know how they say, like in football, we always focus on the trenches and we go back. Or we focus on the trenches and we go back to the run game. A good offensive line, it frees up the running back. A pass rush, it makes your secondary better. Like, we hear that all the time. You know how you cover up a lack of talent at the wide receiver position? Maybe you get some running backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield. Maybe you get a running back that can, I don't know, maybe carry the ball besides Dameon Pierce. Melvin Gordon had 10 carries the other day. That's how you do it. And it's not even, they didn't even try. They didn't even try. They're bringing back Rex Burkhead. You kick the tires on Marlon Mack. What's that going to do for you? Of all the things that I would like Nick Caserio to copy with the Patriot way, it's the way that running backs are used. Start taking it serious. Like, there's some great running backs coming out of the draft this next year. Pair Dameon Pierce with one of those guys. Pair him with Bijan Robinson. Pair him with A-Chain out of Texas A&M. Take the running back position serious. It makes everything better. A good running back can make the offensive line better. The offensive line looks better when Dameon Pierce is running behind him. It looks better than when Rex Burkhead's running behind him. So start taking it serious. There's really no excuse for it. Back to the wide receivers. Talking to William, do you think they/Mills need to push the ball down the field more? I feel like they had some success there last year, either by accident or by design. Davis Mills threw the deep ball really good last year. Now, we went to training camp this year, and we were at every training camp, and for whatever reason, he wasn't throwing the deep ball very well, like at all. But yeah, I do think they should take more shots downfield. I think they should try to loosen up the defense. And the question would be to who? Nico Collins or Chris Moore? Crazy stat. Could I interest you in a couple of stats? Chris Moore, his final year at Cincinnati against Ohio State, he had 3 catches for 221 yards and scored TDs on all 3 catches. He set an NCAA single game record by averaging 73.7 yards per reception. That's some Madden stuff. So 3 catches, 221 yards, 3 touchdowns. Now, I know that was a long time ago, but he does have some deep play potential. And my question is this, and it's sad that we're even asking this question, but I'm asking it. Is Chris Moore the second best wide receiver on the team? That it hurts to say, but that's where we're at right now. Is Chris Moore the second best wide receiver on the Houston Texans? I mean, you've seen him make some pretty big plays the last couple of years. You've seen Nico make a couple, but when it comes to like big play potential, when it comes to a guy you can line up in the slot, I do wonder if Chris Moore, not Nico Collins, is the second best wide receiver on this team. And I'm actually intrigued to see what Philip Dorsett can do. And I know that Nico Collins, he works his ass off. He worked hard. He was at training camp longer than anybody. I think he can be a good player in the NFL. I think that he can be someone in a rotation. But as far as a number 2 receiver, I don't know. Chris Moore might be your second best guy. He's got the big play potential. And maybe that's something we need to look at. I also want to see what Dorsett can do. But a lot of times you find yourself as a fan and you're looking at like the wide receiver and you're saying, man, if only they would just throw him the ball, if he would get these opportunities. I go back to like the Jalen Strongs. You say that, and then you say that for so long, and then finally you realize, okay, maybe this guy just couldn't play. He leaves Houston, and then all of a sudden no one else wants him. Sometimes that's the case. That might be the case with Nico Collins. And I do truly wonder, like, is he a better option, Chris Moore, than Nico Collins when it comes to a number 2 receiver? Maybe. Miles and that Yak says Mills needs to throw the ball downfield. If it's a one-on-one, give your wide receivers a chance. Most of the time you'll get a PI. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know how much that's going to work. John says, I'm spot on the running back issues. It's not a hard fix. Like, and look, like it's easy. Like when you go into a draft, sometimes you'll say they need this and it's not available. And sometimes the opportunity to get assets isn't there in order to fix your needs. So you say that you need this. Well, too bad. Not available. You need a quarterback. Well, there's not really any franchise quarterback available. You needed a left tackle. Sorry, it's not available. Sometimes it takes time to fix certain things. Like the offensive line, it seemed like they tried to fix it for 3 years, and Bill O'Brien and Jack Easterby were such football idiots that that never happened. But running back's not hard. Like that's not difficult. You just have to take it serious. And I don't know what the appeal of Rex Burkhead being your second best running back is, but this wasn't like something that snuck up on him. I mean, you saw it last year. Rex Burkhead led an NFL team in rushing for the first time. And I like Rex, man. I think he's a great, great guy to have on the team. I think he's a great guy to have around. Got some mutual friends, but I mean, come on. Like you've got to do better. That Rex Burkhead was never the second best running back in New England, ever. He's had a knee injury since. It's never happened. Like you can fix that. That could have easily been done, and it wasn't. And now here we are. Conley had no business being active over Dorsett on Sunday. D. Paul said that. They can't quit Conley, man. They just can't. I think he's been fired 3 times this year, and they just bring him back. I thought Dorsett was going to be a guy that when Mechie was out was going to be able to kind of fill that void in the slot, but he really hasn't. So, yeah, that's just the state of the wide receiver position. It's actually kind of depressing. Maybe it changes. We'll see. I also wonder, and I haven't seen like the percentage of how much Cooks has been in the slot, but I thought that maybe Cooks would be able to be in the slot a little bit more. He was in 24% last year. I haven't seen it as much. And again, I might just not be looking at the numbers, but I thought that maybe there was a chance for Cooks to kind of be, doing some work in the slot. I'm going to go now to the Loopholes Facebook page. It's a private page. We don't talk politics or anything on there. It's on Sports Radio 610. Or it's on Facebook. If you want to check it out, I just kind of want to, I'm going to scroll through some of the comments here because it's always a pretty interesting time. If you want to get in, just go ahead. Admin should let you in. And it can be a dangerous spot right now, but there's always some interesting comments. And there's a lot of local sports fans that have a lot of stuff to say. Scott B says, here's the thing. If we look out at the NFL landscape, always deep when someone says something like that, there are probably 7 or 8 QBs we could agree are current franchise guys. There's maybe another 5 or 6 we would have an intense debate about. From there, the rest get put into 2 buckets. Young guys that might evolve into franchise guys and game managers. Mills is in that category. It doesn't make him a horrible guy. He's just not a franchise guy. I agree with that, and I think that's fine. The problem with Davis Mills is he hasn't even played this year. Now, last year he showed you some good things. Davis Mills hasn't even played this year like a guy that you even want on an NFL team. Like, that's how bad he's been. I'm never going to sit here and say Davis Mills has to be Deshaun Watson. Matter of fact, if Davis Mills has like a second year like Jalen Hurts did in Philadelphia, where he's maximizing what's around him, and I'm not saying they have to go to the playoffs, but there's like progress, but there's still like some doubt as to whether he's a franchise guy, I might even be considering to roll it back, run it back with him, but he's got to be better than he is right now. He's just got to be better than he is right now. This was the Cleveland Browns tailgate. Look at these guys. These effing guys. Absolute crazy. Big loss for them. John brought up Stingley. How do you like your toast, Texans, talking about Stingley? I think Stingley's going to be fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with Stingley. I think Stingley is in – I mean, all rookie corners are going to struggle, especially ones that haven't been in the NFL for a couple of years. Or even played football for a couple of years, I should say. I think Stingley's fine. I like the way he responded. He's going to continue to get challenged. He's just going to have to continue to accept the challenge and realize that teams are probably going to try to sniff him out. Anthony said, question for all, name one quarterback in the last 30 years that looks like Mills and then has become an even good quarterback. Tannehill is the only one I remember looking lost for more than one season, but turned out to be okay, but none great. Any Mills fan or anyone else name one in the last 30 years? There have been a lot of quarterbacks that have stunk their rookie year and been okay. It almost seems like there's kind of a straw man thing going on with Davis Mills where I don't know who some people are talking to. Like, I haven't heard that. And I talk to a lot of people. I mean, I'm probably one of the more interactive hosts in town when it comes to talking to listeners, interacting with listeners, trying to get a pulse of what people say. Of course, you're going to be able to sniff out, you're going to be able to sniff out anything on social media. Like I could Google, if I wanted to sit here and say, why do gorillas have sex with birds? I could Google that and I could probably find it on the internet and I could have some sort of straw man argument where I argue about that. And so you're going to find people who say Davis Mills is the is a franchise guy. But for the most part, I just hear people saying, I'm encouraged by what I saw week 1. I want to see what Davis Mills has, and we'll take it from there. I don't really, unless you're just trying to like put together some straw man argument, or like one person's comment makes you lose your mind on it. Like I don't see these people that a lot of like these Mills haters are saying, are like going around saying that he's like the best thing ever. I just don't see it. I don't know. Maybe you're talking to more people than I am. I don't see it. There's a few, but for the most part, it's let's see what happens. Craig, here we go. Where are the peeps rooting for Davis Mills to be awful so the Texans can get a real QB in the draft next year? Pretty sure your wish is coming true. If he continues to play like that, true. Drew says, Mills is a bum and the play calling is trash. That's a hell of a combo. LOL. I don't think Pep is that bad of a play caller. Now, they are near the bottom when it comes to putting guys in motion, which is a shame. But I don't think I just can't look at it. Just tell me specifically what you think Pep should do. The most criticism I've heard, and Stoots did it on the post-game show, and we'll do that again. Shout out to everyone who hopped in on that. The fade to Brandon Cooks, okay, I guess you can say that's crazy. I know he's a little bit shorter, so I understand. And the overtime, the third down debacle, but I haven't like watched Pep Hamilton's offense at this point and said, okay, Pep Hamilton doesn't know what he's doing. Clint says, I like Lovey and Pep as head coach and OC. Lovey's defense is becoming a solid defense. They just need to fix up some of the messes. Pep is a solid OC for sure. The problem is Davis Mills doesn't seem to match his playbook, even though Mills said he's used to this sort of play calling. Mills is not it. I wish they could have both a solid offense and solid defense. I would say everybody wishes that, Clint. It's just weird. They can't have a solid offense but crappy defense. Now they have solid defense and crappy offense. I want both. I think we all want both. I agree with you. Let's see if we got anything else on here. More Eddie. See, like all these people, like the straw man that I read earlier, like where there's like these Davis Mills truthers, point them out to me. I don't see them. Like even shows sometimes, like Ron is like sitting there talking about all these Mills truthers. Like, is it one guy saying it to you and you like you sniff it out, and that's where there's a few. But for the most part, like if you take like a case study, it's like, let's see what happens. Here's Eddie. Sorry, Mills isn't the answer. Every crappy offensive performance gets the Texans one step closer to number 1 pick and Alabama QB Bryce Young in 2023 draft. Dong for Young is his thing. Derek, I absolutely do not want to sacrifice the season hoping Mills wakes up in the morning with arm talent. I don't know who the answer is, but it definitely ain't him. David E., Pep is awful. You're running the ball effectively. What you do, stop doing, and melt down the offense. Again, Tim Kelly was better than this guy. John S., it is not going to take long for Kyle Allen to talk to get started. And what college QBs are we looking for? Gregory Ramirez, Stroud, Young, or Anderson? If we got the number 1. Bunch of poop emojis. Mills hasn't been good today, but that offensive line has played like blank during pass protection. Not true. They actually have the 8th best pass protection in the NFL. So I know we're trained to do that, but that is not true. They have the 8th best pass protection in the NFL. Davis Mills has wrong. There's more Mills stuff. Like the notion that there's like all these Mills truthers, I just don't see them. It's almost like Bigfoot. I don't see them. Just don't. I just scrolled through the 610 Loopholes Facebook page. I definitely don't see him. Bill Martin. Shout out to Bill. Thanks for the awesome Oiler hats. Get all kinds of compliments on those. My buddy Bill, he says more at 10:20 p.m. tonight. He's poking fun at me for yesterday saying 10:20 thing. John says Caserio will have money to spend next year. Sad, but we don't have the cap space now. It's absolutely true. The cap space was a disaster. Jack Easterby was negotiating contracts. Bill O'Brien was handing out bad contracts. The cap next year, it will be interesting to see the approach in free agency. Although if we're being fair, I will say I believe that the talent on this roster is better. So I want to give Caserio that. I just think the running back thing, if you weren't just lost in the lust of Rex Burkhead, you could have tried to do better. I don't know if you're like scared that you bring in enough guys to where you have to cut Rex Burkhead and you just can't find it in your heart to do that. But it shouldn't be hard. Like Rex Burkhead at this point in his career, at the very least, he should be your third or fourth best running back. And he should be competing for his job every training camp. It shouldn't be safe. Like I shouldn't leave day one of training camp and say, oh, well, Rex Burkhead's definitely on this team. Doesn't happen anywhere else. It's not an easy thing, or it's not a hard thing to change. Braden Simmons says, I would have liked them to not abandon the run in the second half. I feel like they fed Pierce early and lightened his load in the second half. I don't know if Pierce is a workhorse running back. Like I had this argument with McClain today. What he said, it doesn't matter, give him the ball. Okay. I mean, that sounds pretty simple. Again, and these are stats that I'm just going to beat into your head because I think they're important. 7 double-digit carry games at Florida and 15 carries twice in 4 years. I mean, what do you think? Like, do you think he's capable of it? Maybe. He's never done it. And I don't want to say like altitude or anything like that, but it was in Denver. I guess I just broke my altitude talk rule, but give him some help. Like, you know why you stopped running the ball? Because you don't trust Rex Burkhead, and you probably shouldn't, to carry the ball in a one-possession game. That's the problem. Like, Denver had a backup running back get 10 carries. I mean, there were 15 carry split shares all around the NFL this week. And the Texans had 15 and 0 with the top 2 running backs on their depth chart. So I don't even think they have to run Pierce. But it would be nice if they had another running back that they could put in there and have like some sort of change of pace. I mean, I think that would be nice, but whatever. At least you got Rex Burkhead, giving speeches in the locker room or whatever's going on there. Braden says, is the receiver they got from Tampa just not learning the playbook? Why is he inactive again? You're talking about Tyler Johnson. Not sure, but I anticipate that to change relatively soon. We'll see Tyler Johnson. He's also open to playing special teams, so we can figure out what he's made of there. I liked him with Tom Brady. There were times where Brady kind of trusted him. And on this team, I think Tyler Johnson could get some run. I anticipate him to be back. Another guy that's going to help after 4 weeks, probably Christian Harris, and then Garrett Wallow. He's likely going to be back in the mix as well, who they really like, and he can probably cover as well. But that's all I got. If you got any more questions, just shoot them to me. Column coming up on sportsradio610.com tomorrow. Going to be talking about just kind of laying out this must-win theory that I have. Gonna also look into Lovie Smith's history in Chicago. We're going to have Danny Parkins out there, one of the top sports radio voices out there. He's going to help us try to get to the bottom of Lovie Smith, as well as Justin Fields, who kind of called out the Bears fans. How are they reacting to that? Lone Star top 10 teams in the state of Texas in college football comes out on Fridays. And we'll just have surprises throughout. We'll do post-game show of the Horns in college football, likely on Saturday, and then on Sunday, the live Texans post-game show, which has been one of our more popular videos. So we'll get into this, keep this going. Just subscribe, spread the word, and we'll have some fun. And hopefully we're talking about a win, so that's a little bit interesting, because I don't want to talk about the draft until argue with my man John about Bryce Young or anything like that. But if you lose to Chicago, I mean, you're pretty dang close to doing that, although this is a bad division. So I'll talk to y'all tomorrow, 10 to 2, Sports Radio 610. Be on the lookout for that column. 41 Acres also coming back. So I got my Longhorn podcast back. Don't get me started on why that got taken away. Rest in peace to Day Foreman, who was a part of it early on. We had a lot of guests on there. So we'll see what happens there. So I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. Subscribe, spread. Appreciate it. Texans versus Bears. On to Chicago, manana.